This is The Cousins by Karen McManus. Allison, age 18. This is the bridge between chapter 4 and 5, where we get a little backstory of Milly's mom, Allison, and how she lived with the stories and how her family was. June 1996. The ferry approached from the opposite side of Gull Cove Island, so when Allison sat on the upper deck of Catmint House, all she saw in front of her was smooth water melting into blue sky. But the buzzing activity around the house made it clear. The summer season was about to begin, and her brothers would be home soon. Their mother had wanted to throw a party for Adam and Anders' return, but before she'd even started planning, she'd become overwhelmed at the amount of work involved. So her assistant, Theresa, had stepped in like the quietly efficient savior she'd become since Allison's father died 6 months ago. Now, a small army of people was setting up for the party tonight, stringing fairy lights on every available tree, building a temporary stage for the live band, and constructing white tents along the side lawn where guests would dine on lobster, mussels, and the Gull Cove Island specialty of quail eggs a la russe. Allison couldn't see the beach below, but she knew a crew was down there getting ready for a fireworks show that would put the 4th of July in most major American cities to shame. Think we'll get this kind of homecoming when we come back from college? Allison's younger brother, Archer, flopped onto the patio chair beside her with a grin. His legs dangled awkwardly at the end. At 17, Archer had gone through his growth spurt lately and had only recently reached the same 6-foot height as Adam. He still didn't know what to do with his newly long limbs. Well, it's not like Mother did this for Adam last summer, Allison pointed out. Their oldest brother had started at Harvard 2 years ago, and the next oldest, Anders, had joined him there the past fall. Allison was breaking family tradition by going to NYU in September. I think it's just that things are different this year. I know. Archer hunched his broad shoulders, looking suddenly much smaller and younger. It's weird, isn't it? How the house can be so full right now, but still empty. Allison's throat tightened. It doesn't feel like a story party without Father here, she said, and Archer smiled ruefully. Especially since they're serving mussels as a main dish. God, he hated those. Archer deepened his voice as Allison joined in his imitation of their father. Snot of the sea. They both huffed out almost laughs, and Archer added, I mean, he wasn't wrong. You can put all the butter and cream and salt or whatever you want on those, but they're still disgusting. Most days since their father's death, Allison felt as though the void left by his larger-than-life presence was unfillable, the kind of loss she'd ache with her entire life. But every once in a while, usually in a quiet moment like this with Archer, she could imagine a time in the future when the memories became more sweet than bitter. Part of her wanted to keep reminiscing, but she'd learned over the past few months that you could only stay so far ahead of grief. If she let herself wallow before Mother's big night, it would be hard to put on the kind of bright face expected of her. Archer seemed to be thinking the same thing. He leaned back in his chair, clasping his hands behind his head and crossing his legs at the ankle, the new position signaling an abrupt change of subject. On a scale of 1 to 10, he said, how much obnoxious do you think Harvard has made Anders? 20, Allison said, and they both laughed. Probably. It'll be good to see Adam, though, Archer said. He worshipped their oldest brother to a degree Allison didn't quite share, but she was still happy at the thought of him coming home. There was no one on earth who could make their mother smile like Adam. I talked to him right before he left, and he said he's down for Rob Valentine's party next Saturday. We just have to convince Anders. I never said I was going, Allison reminded him. All the Story children had attended boarding school outside Boston since they were 12 years old, and only Archer had maintained and grown the friendships he'd made at Gull Cove Island Elementary School. For the past few years, he'd spent every school vacation trying to convince his siblings to accompany him to one party or another. None of them blended as well as he did. Come on, it'll be fun, Archer urged. Allison rolled her eyes. Did you learn nothing from the Kayla Matt debacle? That's ancient history, Archer said. Not to Anders, Allison straightened suddenly, tilting her head. Is Mother calling me? I don't think, Archer started, pausing when a faint but clear Allison floated toward them from inside the house. I stand corrected. Your supersonic ears strike again. Allison got to her feet and crossed the patio, opening the sliding glass door just as their mother stepped into the connected parlor. Oh, Allison, thank goodness, there you are. Mother was already dressed for the evening in a white sheath, silver sandals, and canary diamond jewelry. She'd pulled her dark hair back into a loose chignon, as well as well-placed wisps softening the sharp planes of her face. Her lips were signature red, her smoky eyeshadow as flawless as ever. You'd have to look closely to notice the tightness in her expression. Mildred Story wasn't a natural hostess. She'd always relied on her husband's gregariousness to get her through social gatherings. Could you go to the tents and let me know what you think about the flowers? She asked. Theresa ordered them from the new place on Hurley Street. Brewer Floral, I think? Something like that. We've never used them before. I'm worried she only chose them because Matt works there now. I just had a look at the arrangements and they feel a touch unbalanced to me. Unbalanced? Allison asked. Too heavy on the calla lilies, Mother said. She twisted her hands together, looking down at them with a frown. There was another new anxiety. Mother had recently become convinced that her hands betrayed the fact that she was nearing 50 in a way her face still didn't. Allison pried them gently apart with a reassuring squeeze. I'm sure they're beautiful, but I'll take a look, Allison said, slipping through the door and closing it behind her. She knew what her father would say if he were here. Your job at this moment, Allison, no matter what your actual opinion might be, is to reassure your mother that each vase contains precisely the right amount of calla lilies. This she could do. She padded on bare feet across the polished hardwood and marble floors of the house, stopping at the side entrance to slip on a pair of sandals she'd left by the door. The noise level was much higher when she stepped outside than it had been on the patio, voices mixing with the sounds of light construction and the occasional strum of a guitar from the band's sound check. The smell of honeysuckle was everywhere, wafting from the bushes that nestled against the side of Catman House. Allison turned the corner and nearly bumped into two people standing side by side, surveying the sea of white tents in front of them. Hello, Allison, her mother's lawyer. Donald Camden put a hand out to steady her. Where are you running off to? Oh, well, Allison trailed off as she took in Mother's assistant, Theresa Ryan, standing beside him. She couldn't very well say that she was here to make sure Theresa hadn't selected a subpar florist due to nepotism. I just wanted to look around. Theresa smiled warmly. She was a widow too, but unlike Mildred, Theresa wasn't afraid to show her age. She was gray-haired and a little plump, known for wearing simple dresses and comfortable shoes no matter what the occasion. Let me know what you think, Theresa said, lowering her voice to a conspirational tone as she put a hand on Allison's arm. Between you and me, your mother's standards are a bit terrifying. Tell me about it, Allison said with a laugh, relieved at the excuse to poke around. Allison felt her spine stiffening and her shoulders straightening as she walked across the lawn through a differential path that opened when people recognized her. Usually she tried to blend into the background at her parents' parties, but tonight would be different. Her mother needed her to be a hostess, not a shy teenager. When Allison stepped inside the nearest tent, she took a moment to appreciate Theresa's skills. Everything was beautiful. The crisp white tablecloths, the cushioned chairs with gauzy white bows tied across their backs, the shining silverware, the sparkling crystal, and yes, the flowers. They stood in gleaming white vases at the center of each table, bursting with creamy roses, lime green orchids, some sort of a feathery succulent Allison couldn't identify, and striking magenta calla lilies. She couldn't imagine anything more perfect. Meet with your approval, Allie? Asked a voice behind her. Allison turned to see Theresa's son, Matt, wearing a Brewer floral t-shirt, and all the carefully constructed poise she'd imagined for herself vanished. Nobody calls me that, she blurted. Too bad, Matt said. It suits you. Maybe I can make it catch on. Allison remained tongue-tied and until Matt added, Seriously, is everything okay? My mom is freaking out about this party. If I have to return 50 floral arrangements, she might have a heart attack. They're beautiful, Allison said, and Matt wiped imaginary sweat from his brow. You just made her year. Allison bit her lip to swallow a smile. Matt was cute, charming, and despite his relationship to Theresa, currently persona non grata among the Story siblings, he'd been friendly enough with all of them until last Christmas when he'd hooked up with Anders' on again, off again Gulf Cove Island girlfriend, Kayla Dugas. But it was enough to turn Matt into Anders' sworn enemy for life. It had been a while, come to think of it, since Allison had heard Matt refer to anything other than fucking Matt Ryan. Anders is gonna be here soon, she found herself saying, and Matt's smile dropped. Thanks for the tip, he said. Better make myself scarce. He looked around at the glittering surroundings and added, After all, it's not like I'm a guest or anything. No, don't. I didn't. God, she hadn't meant to chase Matt off. She should have been mad at him on Anders' behalf, but the thing was, Anders put as much as effort into being Kayla's boyfriend as he did everything else in life that wasn't directly about being Anders' story. In other words, minimal. And Matt was Matt. Matt gave her a crooked smile. Hey, don't worry about it. My job here is done anyway. As long as you like the flowers. Then he stepped a little closer, blue eyes crinkling as they swept over her faded t-shirt and athletic shorts. You wearing that tonight? I like it. Very GCI casual. Allison knew he was kidding, but she couldn't help saying, My mother would die 1,000 deaths and then come back to kill me. Matt moved closer still. Would she kill you if you had coffee with me next week? Wait, was Matt Ryan asking her out? Allison opened her mouth to reply. With what? She had no idea. Then closed it as a familiar face swam into focus at the tense opening. Handsome, expectant, and a little bit arrogant. Adam. Her oldest brother had made it back from Boston, which meant Anders must be right behind him. So Allison straightened her shoulders once again, gave Matt her most practiced story smile, and said, I'm sure she wouldn't mind at all. Let's set that up sometime, but I have to go now. Please excuse me. Abraham Story might not be here anymore, but Allison knew exactly what he'd say if he found her caught between her brothers and her crush. Family first. Always. Guys, you're back, Allison called, stretching her arms out wide to greet her brothers. This is The Cousins by Karen M. McManus, Chapter 5. Aubrey. How do I look? Milly asks, half turning in front of her closet with one hand on her hip. Her long dark hair is loose, and she's wearing cropped white jeans and a floaty tank top patterned with vivid pink and silver flowers. Gorgeous, I say truthfully. I run a hand over the threadbare green blanket covering my twin bed while I wait for my cousin to finish getting ready. The summer hire dorms aren't nearly as luxurious as the resort itself. Milly and I are sharing a small, bare room simply furnished with beds, built-in dressers, topped with mirrors, and 2 desks with wooden chairs. Bathrooms are down the hallway, and if we want to watch big screen television or sit on something with an actual cushion, we have to go to the common room. The space between our desks has been overtaken by Milly's suitcases, which wouldn't fit into her narrow closet. Still, if all her clothes are like what she's wearing now, I can't blame her for bringing them. I love that shirt, I say. Thanks. Baba bought it on the same trip to Japan when she got your Gamaguchi, Milly says, carefully running a brush through her already shining hair. That was really nice of her, I say. When we first got to our room and started unpacking, Milly handed me a gift from the grandmother she calls Baba. It was a beautiful little clasp bag with a pattern like blue waves because, Milly said, she knows you like to swim. That put a lump in my throat. My mother's parents are dead, so Gran is my only living parent. And yet, a woman I'm not even related to is 100 times more thoughtful toward me. It's been 4 days since that strange, awkward introduction in Carson Fine's office. As soon as Milly and I got to our dorm room, my cousin insisted that Gran didn't know we were coming. Didn't you see her face? She asked. She was shocked. Well, yeah, I said. She was unprepared. I'm sure she had something more formal in mind for our first meeting. But of course she knew we were coming, Milly. She invited us. Milly sniffed. Someone invited us. I'm not so sure it was her anymore. That makes zero sense, I replied. And I meant it. I assumed Millie was just being dramatic, but since then we've heard from Gran exactly once. A short, impersonal note to let us know she'd been called away to Boston on business. I'll be in touch upon my return, she wrote. I still think Millie is overreacting, but yeah, it's weird. Who brings their grandchildren to visit for the first time ever and then takes off? Maybe Baba should have gotten us t shirts that say, My other grandmother is a bitch who'll stand you up. But she's not clairvoyant. I can't help but snicker, which makes me feel guilty, so I quickly change the subject. I wonder if Gran saw the article. I say. On Sunday, the Gull Cove Gazette ran an article with the headline, A New Chapter to the Stories. Grandchildren Return to Gull Cove. We're not sure who tipped them off. Millie thinks it was that Hazel girl from downtown, but I'm guessing Carson Fine. He's been treating us like island royalty ever since we arrived, offering us perks like use of the resort jeep and giving us all the best shifts. I'm one of the lifeguards at a pool that opens at 6 a.m., but I've never had to be there before 10. Jonah and Millie work at two of the resort restaurants, and while I haven't talked to Jonah much since we arrived, I know for a fact that Millie barely works 3 hours a day. Millie snorts. Well, we know someone did. Yesterday afternoon, creamy white envelopes appeared in our mailboxes. I thought it might be Gran again, but the note inside was something else entirely. To Aubrey Story, Jonah Story, and Milly Story-Takahashi. Donald S. Camden. Requests the pleasure of your company at lunch Wednesday, June 30, 1 p.m. Littoral Restaurant, RSVP to Melinda Cartwright, mcartwright at camdenandassociates.com. Oh my god, Millie said when we read it. Donald Camden. He's going to banish us from this island, isn't he? Just like he did with our parents. Her voice dropped an octave. You know what you did. He can't do that, I'd protested weakly, but I'm honestly not sure. The longer we go without hearing from Gran, the less confident I am about anything. At least we'll find out soon, though. It's 12:45, and the car Donald Camden is sending for us should be arriving any minute now. Millie fastens on her second earring. Let's talk about something more cheerful. How's your boyfriend? Is he pining away for you already? Instinctively, I pull my phone out of my pocket right before my plane took off from Portland last Friday. Thomas texted, Have a great summer, with a gif of rolling waves. It felt weirdly final. I haven't heard from him since, even though I've been sending constant updates and left a couple of voice messages. I know there's a time difference and he can't really use his phone at his summer job, but still. Thomas isn't really the pining type, I say. My cousin darts a quick glance towards my reflection in her mirror, like she's weighing the pros and cons of a follow up question, before picking up a tube of lip gloss. Well, you have my permission to flirt with anyone in this Tory program, she says, stumbling over the word. Tauhi, I say. That's what Gull Cove Resort calls those of us in the summer hire program who are still in high school. We have separate housing with resident assistants plus extra team building activities. So far, a beach bonfire party our first night and a volleyball tournament yesterday. We even got t-shirts with Tauhi emblazoned on the front in cursive letters, which I was wearing until a few minutes ago when I changed to go to lunch. Millie shoved hers in the bottom drawer of her dresser as soon as she got it. Most of the Tauhis don't really need to work. Jonah's roommate, Ephraim, is the son of an R&B star from the early aughts. Another guy's mother is a senator. And our next-door neighbor, Brittany's parents, developed the messaging app that my entire school uses. Almost everyone in the summer hire program is here for the experience or the prestige, or a chance to get away from their families. Millie frowns into the mirror. I don't get the name. What's a towhee? It's a bird, I remind her. She must not have read the welcome packet as closely as I did. It only shows up on Gull Cove Island in the summer. Cute, Millie says flatly. I can already tell that Millie's in the team building type. But I am. I've been part of a team almost my whole life. Lots of different sports until middle school when I started focusing exclusively on swimming. Now, as I watch my cousin get ready, it hits me hard that even though the swim team and Thomas have been the twin pillars of my existence since I was 13, I feel miles away from either of them. And not just literally. The loneliness of that settles over my shoulders like a heavy blanket. I stand and shake myself like I do before the start of a meet, trying to chase away my gloomy thoughts. Should we get Jonah? Let's not, Milly says dryly. We'll see him soon enough. He's not as bad as I expected, I say, peering into the mirror above my dresser. My ponytail is still intact, so I'm good to go. I went through a brief phase of getting ready when I first started high school until Thomas told me he couldn't tell the difference. Every once in a while, he forgets to be rude. Millie makes a face. And then he remembers. My phone buzzes and I look down hopefully, but it's just a message from my father. Again. Mom sent a string of texts earlier asking about the trip, my cousins, and the resort. She also told me she'd be staying with her sister. For a while. Dad, on the other hand, only sends variations on the same question. What's going on with your grandmother? I ignore the message and stuff my phone into my pocket. My entire life, I've dropped whatever I was doing to answer when my father calls. This time, he can wait. The car that Donald Camden sends for us is a spacious Lincoln, but fitting three in the back would be tight. Jonah volunteers to take the front seat, and then, I suspect, has instant regrets when it turns out our driver is a chatterbox. You seen much of the island yet, or are they keeping you too busy for that? He asks as we pull into Ocean Avenue. It's the not very originally named road that runs alongside some of the biggest beaches on Gull Cove Island. Jonah just grunts, so I lean forward. Well, we've only been here for 4 days, I say. We've gone to the beach closest to the resort, and we've been downtown a couple of times. Did you notice anything missing? He asks in the tone of someone about to reveal a delightful secret. Before I can reply, he adds, not a single chain store or restaurant, and don't think they haven't tried, Starbucks especially. But we're big supporters of local business here. Jonah, who has been staring at his phone, revives briefly. That's great, he says, with more enthusiasm than he's shown for anything so far. Millie pokes the back of his seat. Do you hate Starbucks as much as you hate... She screws up her face, as if in deep thought. Everything? He doesn't bother answering, and our driver just keeps on talking. We're gonna pass a few beaches on your right before we get downtown. That's Nickel Beach, very popular with families. It got the name because you used to find loose change in the sand all the time. Rumor has it that the man who founded Gold Cove Resort used to bury hundreds of dollars worth of coins there every summer so kids could have treasure hunts. I don't know if that's true or not, but people did stop finding change shortly after he died. It is true, I almost say. It's always been my mother's favorite story tale. How my tycoon grandfather would sneak out in the dead of night every few weeks to replenish the supply of bead change. My father told it to her when they met at a mutual friend's party after college, and my mom used to say that she fell halfway in love with him right then and there. It didn't occur to me until just now that the first thing that attracted her to Dad was the reflected glow of someone else's generosity. I exchange glances with Millie, and can tell she's heard about the Nickel Beach from her mother too. But neither of us say anything. It's too complicated a subject for a short trip. We pause at a red light, but the driver's monologue doesn't stop. He gestures toward a strip of flat gray sand to our right. And over here, we have Cuddy Beach. Wait, I interrupt, the name catching my attention. Did you say Cutter Beach? No, Cuddy with a Y. Can I look at it? I ask. It was, my father's favorite. Really? Millie asks, just as our driver good naturally says sure. He pulls over to the side of the road. Not our prettiest beach, in my opinion, but go ahead and take a gander. I get out of the car, Millie at my heels. There's a strip of grass between the road and the beach, which is small with a crescent shape in the middle. The sand is coarse and rocky, the vegetation surrounding is sparse and dry looking. Beachgoers with bright towels are scattered here and there, but it's not as crowded as I would have expected for the middle of the day. Millie adjusts her sunglasses. This was Uncle Adam's favorite beach? I turned to her. Did you ever read his book, A Brief and Broken Silence? Ah, no, she says. I tried, but it was kind of boring, I say. I know, but the main character, who's a stand in for my dad, I always thought constantly talks about a beach in his hometown, Cutter Beach. And one of the lines he repeats over and over is, "That's where it all started to go wrong." Huh, Millie is quiet for a few seconds, then points out, "But this is Cuddy Beach." I know, I say. My dad isn't the most original thinker, though. His main character has a wife named Magda, and my mom is Megan, and his daughter's name is Augie. Millie wrinkles her nose. Augie? Short for Augusta, I explain. Okay, so what? You think something happened to your dad at this beach? Not necessarily, I say slowly, because that's exactly how my dad would put it. Things happen to him, like they're out of his control. But that's not how life really works, or at least it's not how it's ever worked for him. I just think it's interesting. There's a loud ahem noise behind us, and when we turn, Jonah is glaring out the window. You done sightseeing? He asks, or should we skip lunch so you can keep staring at the world's ugliest beach? 3 more days, Millie mutters as we start back toward the car. That's it. That's how long until I kill him. L'Etoile is a classic old person's restaurant. The wallpaper is floral, the chairs are low and cushiony, and everything on the heavy, gilt edged menu is baked and costs at least $30. If you want something that's not on the menu, by all means let me know. Donald Camden tells us as a server fills our water glasses. The chef is a personal friend. Thanks, I murmur, studying him surreptitiously over the top of my menu. He's about Grand's age and equally well preserved, with thick silver hair and a deep tan. There's a ruddiness to his cheeks, either from the sun or his already being on his second drink. Ever since we arrived at the restaurant, he's been affable and seemingly at ease, asking questions about our jobs and how we like the Tauhi program. Meanwhile, I'm getting more and more nervous because I still have no idea why we're here or what he wants from us. Can I get my hamburger with a bun? Jonah asks, frowning as he studies his menu. He's the least dressed up person in the room, in a threadbare t-shirt, jeans, and ratty Vans sneakers. At least Millie and I put some effort into our clothes after we looked up the restaurant online. But if Donald is annoyed by Jonah, he doesn't show it. Of course, he chuckles. The regulars here are very carb conscious, but that's not something you need to worry about. The server returns to take our orders, and when he's finished, Donald leans back in his chair and sips amber liquid from a crystal tumbler. Have you had the chance to enjoy our beaches yet? His glance around the table lands on Jonah, who slouches lower in his seat. I'm not really a beach person, he mutters. As far as I can tell, Jonah isn't an anything person. He hasn't taken part in any of the Tauhi activities so far. A lot of the girls on our hallway think he's cute. Brittany, in particular, makes a point of inviting him everywhere. But if he's interested in anyone, he doesn't show it. I've heard Catmint Beach is nice, Millie says. You know, the one in front of our parents' house. She tosses her hair and adds, It was my mother's favorite. I can feel myself go red, gauntlet thrown before the entrees have even arrived. But Donald barely reacts except to take another sip of his drink. Catmint Beach is lovely, he says smoothly. Exquisite sunrises. What about Cuddy Beach? I ask. That's where it all started to go wrong. I watch Donald Camden's face carefully for some sign that Cuddy Beach matters. That maybe it's even tied to why my grandmother disinherited our parents. But he just shrugs. Unremarkable. Millie shifts restlessly in her seat. I think Donald picks up on the fact that she's getting angsty with all the polite conversation because he settles his glass on a coaster and leans forward, hands folded in front of him. I could talk about our lovely beaches all day, but that's not why asked you here. May I be frank? Please, I say, just as Millie says. I wish you could. Jonah mutters something that sounds like, I don't know, can you? But it's too low for me to be sure. The server reappears just then with our food. Donald waits until he's handed all the plates around before continuing. Your grandmother isn't in the best of health. There's no imminent crisis, but she's increasingly delicate, and in my opinion, any disruptions in routine should be avoided. I fear she's overextending herself with the hospitality she's shown toward the three of you today, and that burden will only increase as the summer progresses. Burden, Milly says, looking affronted. And what hospitality are you talking about exactly? We've barely seen her since we got here. Donald acts like she hasn't spoken. At the same time, an interesting opportunity has presented itself. I wanted to share it with you. Are you familiar with Agent Undeclared movies? Well, yeah, I say, of course. The first Agent Undeclared movie, about two college students turned high tech spies, came out when I was in 8th grade and was such a surprise hit. There have been two more since. I've had a crush on the lead actor, Dante Rogan, for years. Sometimes when Thomas is kissing me, I close my eyes and picture Dante. I don't know if you've heard, but the fourth one is filming in Boston this summer, Donald says. An old friend's law firm does legal work for the franchise, and he shared that they're in need of some help on set. Young people who could assist with gopher tasks and occasionally be present as stand ins or perhaps even extras in crowd scenes. I wonder if you three would be interested. Would we ever? I blurt out without thinking. No promises, Donald says, cutting into his baked scrod. But if you'd like me to look into it, I'm happy to. Housing will be provided, and the pay is quite good, I hear. More than the going rate for resort work. It would be quite a win-win. He pauses to take a careful bite of fish. You three get the experience of a lifetime, and your grandmother, who's not in the best shape to play hostess at the moment, can enjoy a quiet, uneventful summer. But we already have jobs, Jonah says, looking pensive. We can't just leave. Donald waves a dismissive hand. The summer hire program at Gull Cove Resort always has more applicants than it can accommodate. There's quite a lengthy wait list. I'm sure your spots could easily be filled. Would we get to work with Dante Rogan? I ask breathlessly. Milly stands abruptly and drops her napkin on the chair. I need the restroom, she says. Want to come with, Aubrey? I don't have to go. She smiles through her gritted teeth. So keep me company. I don't have much choice when she latches onto my arm and pulls. I follow her through the restaurant, weaving among most empty tables. Millie pushes through the door to the Millie pushes through the door to the ladies' room, steering me in front of a gilt-framed mirror above double sinks. The entire room smells like we just tumbled into a vat of potpourri. My cousin leans against the pink-tiled wall. My cousin leans against the pink-tiled wall and crosses her arms. Don't you think this is a little weird? Half of me registers her skeptical tone, and the other half is still imagining bonding with Dante Rogan over the coffee I'm going to fetch him this summer. Working on a movie set? I think it's amazing. Really? She asks, because it feels like a bribe. I frown, stubbornly resistant to her ruining my fantasy, and she sighs. Come on, Aubrey. This is Donald Camden we're talking about. Our parents' arch nemesis. He doesn't have our best interests at heart. Arch nemesis? I almost laugh, but she's right. My father talked about Donald Camden constantly when I was growing up, always with a note of bitter resentment. Donald won't return my emails. Donald says mother's decision hasn't changed. Donald says it doesn't matter that father wouldn't have wanted his children disinherited. All that matters is that he didn't put it in writing. So what are you saying? That Mr. Camden's trying to get rid of us? That's exactly what I'm saying. It's what I've been saying, remember? But why? Millie taps Millie taps a finger on her chin. I don't know, but it's interesting that he can't, isn't it? As usual, I feel like Millie is 3 steps ahead of me. Huh? Clearly, if it were up to him, we'd already been gone. He wouldn't need to dangle a plum job. He'd just have us fired. So whatever's going on around here, Donald Camden and Mildred Story aren't in sync this time. He can't send He can't send a you know what you did letter and be done with it. She peers into the mirror to smooth her hair, a small smile playing at her lips, which is kind of satisfying, isn't it? So what, I ask? Now you think Gran did invite us? No, just because she's willing to let us stay doesn't mean she brought us here. I sigh. You make my head spin, Milly. She grins and loops her arm through mine, pulling me toward the bathroom door. Don't worry, you'll get used to it.